They're constantly monitored by facial recognition cameras that are able to instantly put a face to a name. Now the Chinese are also ranked.
China has big plans to become a global leader in artificial intelligence. It has enabled a cashless economy where people make purchases with their faces. A giant network of surveillance cameras with facial recognition helps police monitor citizens.
Health Passport Ireland is created to protect our society and our economy. Built in Ireland by the RockU Group, the system uses the very best COVID-19 testing, combined with the latest mobile technologies. Health Passport Ireland is powered by proven and validated systems, allowing us all to take safer steps in our return to our normal way of life. Here's how it works. With Health Passport Ireland, everyone can now be tested for COVID-19 at any time, which helps to protect you, your family, our jobs, and our economy. Your COVID-19 test will be performed with highly accurate serological or swab tests. Your test is performed by a medical professional. After your COVID-19 test, an authorised healthcare administrator creates your Health Passport Ireland account. Your login details will be emailed to you immediately with a link to download your Health Passport mobile app. The authorised healthcare administrator securely updates your COVID-19 test results in your Health Passport. Once activated, you can easily display your COVID-19 status on your mobile. Your Health Passport can be scanned if you wish, which helps protect those around us. Your COVID-19 status will efficiently display as green, amber or red, dependent on your test results. This allows us to go about our daily activities in a safer way. We can all use Health Passport Ireland in many ways, such as travel, hospitality, education, healthcare, construction, offices, entertainment, visits and much, much more. Naturally, the validity of your COVID-19 test will expire over time, so an automatic reminder will be sent when it's time to be tested again. Your status will move to amber when your test period has expired. Health Passport Ireland does not use Bluetooth or track your location. This preserves your privacy. The systems can work in harmony with existing government contact tracing apps. When a vaccine becomes available, your official vaccination status can also be displayed within your Health Passport. You can even keep a diary of your international travel and events you have attended. Health Passport Ireland can be linked to existing secure medical systems if required, for example, at your GP or hospital. You can visit www.healthpassportireland.ie for more information. Health Passport Ireland, working together to protect our society and economy.
Hey, Billy. What are you doing up there, Speckles? Well, folks, the madness continues, and yes, I'm back. I was banned for 7 days from uploading to YouTube. I was a naughty boy, apparently. I said things I wasn't allowed to say, and so I got a slap on the wrist, and they banned me from posting or uploading for 7 days. As they do. Didn't really matter. It was good to have some time off. A few people said, well, you could have uploaded a BitChute, Max. Yeah, I could have. But, you know, when it happened, I kind of thought, you know, if I upload to BitChute, then I'm going to have to also upload to LBRY. And, you know, the thing with YouTube, I can upload to one place and it goes everywhere because they're all linked. So, and, you know, and I thought, well, it's kind of good. I wouldn't mind having a week off. And so I did. I had a week off. I sent out a newsletter to everybody. If you sign up to my newsletter, folks, and I don't send out newsletters, but I have a mailing list. If you sign up to my mailing list, when these sorts of things happen, I can send out an email so you don't get too concerned about me. I did get a few emails from people who were a little concerned. I tried to alleviate those concerns, but it's kind of good just to have a week off. I haven't done that for a long time. Had a week off where I just didn't even think about this stuff. I just did other things. And it was good. I really kind of enjoyed it. But the world's gone crazy. It just continues to be crazy. And the craziness is next level everywhere. In Utah, the United States, never to be outdone, in Utah, school is returning. And not only is school returning, but they're making it safe by threatening students with arrest if they break COVID restriction guidelines. Students can be arrested for doing things such as using the toilets from a different year. If you're in grade 6, you better not use the grade 7 toilets because you may be arrested. They're even introducing what they're saying will be Class B misdemeanors for kindergarten students, folks. Kindergarten students who fail to adhere to social distancing and COVID guidelines can be charged, arrested, and charged with Class B misdemeanors for kindergarten students to protect them from the virus, folks. As I've been saying, folks, if you send your kids back to these schools, this is child abuse. Make no mistake about it, it's child abuse. They got here, you can be strict guidelines for coughing, strict guidelines for using the toilets for other years. Even kindergarten students will receive Class B misdemeanors, or even joking about coronavirus. If you make COVID-19 jokes, you can be arrested, folks. Kind of like the lady in Ballarat, Australia, who was arrested for making a Facebook post. Making a Facebook post about the Freedom Day March on Saturday, they arrested her. A pregnant woman, handcuffed her in front of her children and dragged her off because that's what they have to do to protect her, to keep people safe. It's dangerous to be saying anything that the government doesn't approve of, folks. You might be a terrorist. They're now linking conspiracy theorists with terrorists, did you know? They could accuse me of terrorism, folks, because I disagree with what the government's saying. You know, so therefore I'm a conspiracy theorist. And what is a conspiracy theorist? You mean someone who disagrees with the words uttered by proven liars? That makes me a conspiracy theorist, does it? Interesting concept. But not to be outdone, we saw it in Germany as well. Massive protests in Germany, millions of people protesting in Germany, in Berlin. But through that, we did see an enormous amount of police brutality. And at one point, we did see police beating up on a pregnant woman. They seem to like doing that, picking on the pregnant women. Good old brave police officers. They're such cowardly dickheads, they really are. You know, and they've really overstepped the mark with what they're doing in Victoria. I mean, Dan Andrews is a tyrant. He's a tyrant. And it's time that people rose up and took the tyrant out. It really is. I mean, he's in abusive office. He's carrying out criminal conspiracy to fraud, reckless endangerment of the public health. Yeah, he's just a tyrant. Treason, I mean, you name it. The book should be thrown at this guy, and the police are acting completely outside the law. Nothing they're doing can be even vaguely seen as the performance of their duty or been designed to protect anybody. And, you know, it's time that people push back. It really is, folks. It's time that people push back. In Hawaii as well, we've got checkpoints with mandatory testing in Hawaii being rolled out. That's a nice touch, isn't it? See, it's happening everywhere, folks. It's happening everywhere. Something else that I said a couple of months ago when all the food shortages and when I started talking about what's going to happen with the food shortages, remember I said that it's very likely they will want to kill all the poultry, want people to kill their chickens and things because they'll say it's avian flu or something. Well, yep, right on cue, folks. In Victoria, of course, has to be Victoria. In Victoria, they're saying they're scared that avian flu has been found on some poultry farm somewhere, and so they're culling tens of thousands of chickens and an untold number of emus due to avian flu. Wonderful, isn't it? They can just use this to completely destroy the food chain, and the food chain is breaking down everywhere, folks. You know, if you've been looking at the reports being put out by Osage Farmer, he's been doing some great stuff. We've had grain silos exploding, you know, like grain silo elevators exploding, trucks full of corn overturning. We had that huge hurricane sweep through the United States, which just coincidentally just happened to go through the main area where they produce corn and grain in the United States. So, you know, it's absolutely ridiculous, folks. And we've got the protests running rampant all across America as well still, the Black Lives Matter protests. And the Black Lives Matter protests, I mean, this is, again, all about breaking down the food chain. You know, the knock-on effect, making towns unsafe for people to go to. There was a couple of truck drivers arrested, actually. There was a couple of guys who drive food trucks, and they were arrested because they were at a garage. And the mentality of the police, they said that these truck drivers must have been at this gas station. The fact that they were at this gas station, they said, they used that as evidence to say that they were on their way to a protest. They must have been doing something against the police. And so they arrested them for 48 hours. A couple of guys driving trucks full of food. You reckon it was really about the protests, folks, or you think it was about stopping the supply of food? Because that's what they're doing everywhere. And that's what's going on behind the scenes with all this. You know, while everyone's arguing over masks and everyone's arguing over Black Lives Matter, and even with all the stuff we're doing to expose what the government's doing, the food chain's breaking down the whole way. All of the theatre that the government is doing, you know, exposing themselves and arguing about this and arguing about that, it's all to buy time while the food chain continues to break down. A great video Jeff Berwick put out the other day. It's been another good reason. I mean, I had a week off, but it didn't matter because everything I wanted to cover, Jeff's been putting out in his videos. He's been doing some great videos. He did a really good one the other day where he spoke about the fact that the CDC has readjusted their numbers in the United States, and they've admitted that 94% of the people they claim died of COVID-19 didn't actually die of COVID-19 at all. That's CDC's own figures, fact checkers, that's their own figures. Only 6% of the number is actually true. And not only that, but they also admit that 90% of the tests were probably negative and not positive. So even when you put that down, you think, okay, well, 94% of the people actually died of other things, and 90% of the tests are negative. So the figure of 154,000 dead in the United States from COVID-19 now drops down to about 9 or 10,000. But we're not hearing that from the news. I saw a report on the news today. They're saying the figures are now up to, 170 something thousand. Well, hang on, no, you're not really taking into account what the CDC just said, and that is that 94% of the figures are false readings. So there is no pandemic. There just isn't. It's a fraud. It's a massive fraud, and it's been a fraud right since the beginning. There's also a great website put out by it was a Swiss research site. I can't remember the name of it. I'll put it up on the screen, and it goes through 30 facts about COVID-19. And you go and look at these facts, folks, and it kind of shows you that there is no pandemic. It's a scam. It's a fraud. So it should be over now. It should be over. There shouldn't be any reason to lock anything down. There shouldn't be any reason to be developing a vaccine. Shouldn't be any reason for any of this stuff. So why are they still going ahead with it? You know? There's a huge class action being mounted against Daniel Andrews. That's one good thing. But a lot of it, again, is theatre. See, even this arguing over the figures, it's all theatre. Oh, this is being investigated and that's being investigated. No, they're all working together. They're all working together. They'll point the finger at this guy, they'll point the finger at that guy, then they'll all fade into the shadows while everybody starves. We're heading into a very, very different world. I did an interview this morning, and one of the questions they asked me was, do you think there's going to be a point where we get back to sort of how things were? Get back to some semblance of normality? And I said, no. There isn't. Things cannot ever return to the way they were. Everything's broken down too much. You can't just stop the supply chains this way, put 15 million people out of work in the United States, burn all the crops, shut down all the international trade and expect things to ever return to normal. And not only that, they do this every 100 years or so, folks. I've shown you the photographs of the Spanish flu when they had mandatory wearing of masks. They're only allowed to gather in groups of 10. People holding up signs saying wear a mask or go to jail. And you look at Bolshevism. Look at the Bolshevik Revolution. How the Bolshevik Revolution started. The big toilet paper shortage. Yeah, that's how the Bolshevik Revolution started, folks. There's a big toilet paper shortage. The supply chains all broke down. Russian Revolution started. Only went for about 6 months, the real battle. But then came the famine, then came everything after it. That was 101 years ago, 1919. You know what date it all started? March 11. March 11th. You know what day they locked down the whole world from COVID-19 and declared a pandemic, folks? March 11. 101 years later, Bolshevism 2.0. That's what we're facing, folks. That's why things can't ever return to what they were. Can they, Billy? What do you think, mate? You're looking pretty relaxed there. Pretty relaxed, just kicking back on the deck. But things can never really go back to what they were, folks. It's a new world we're moving into. And what it's going to be is going to be determined by us. We have every opportunity to create some really good change here. We really do. You know, for the first time in living memory, the entire system's been laid bare. All those people who were classed as conspiracy theorists, well, here it is. It's not a theory anymore. And it's most definitely a conspiracy. I mean, you should be able to see that just by the way the governments are all working together to do the same thing. It's all in lockstep. People might think, well, how could these governments agree to do this when they can't agree on anything? But the thing is, they can agree on everything, and they always have agreed on everything. All of the things they've shown us, it's all been theatre, folks. Theatre for the masses. To make us think that the governments are actually the enemies of each other. To make us think that we need governments to protect us. But who we need them to protect us from? Well, the other governments, of course. Without our government, the other governments might want to help us. But that never happens, folks. I mean, they might want to hurt us, but that never happens, folks. Even when we go to war with other countries, they never bomb the government buildings. They just bomb the people. The leaders go and they have talks. You know, if one leader is angry with another leader and they want to go to war and they go and have talks, why doesn't one of them pull out a gun and shoot the other guy? The war would be over, just killed the leader. Oh no, they figure out different ways to cull their populations and make the population believe that we need government. It's all contrived, folks. Even when you look at the Spanish flu, most of the people didn't die from the flu, they died from the vaccines. And World War I and World War II, they were just big population culls. That's all they were. That's all any of these wars have ever been. And that's what they're doing now. And when you look at the depths of what they're doing with this vaccine, how this vaccine is going to alter our DNA, how it's going to attack chromosome 8, you're going to end up with a zombie apocalypse, folks, because you're going to end up with a whole bunch of really dumbed down people who just can't think straight, who think the government's their friend, and then they'll come after all the people who are awake. You know, the zombies, the brain-dead zombies who take the vaccination will be a bigger threat than the government or the police, if we're not careful, folks. That's the way we're going. It's a pretty twisted world, eh? But now's the time to push back. Now's the time to put down all the fear. I mean, it's come to the wire now, folks. What are you going to do? You're going to just do what you're told and get taken away and be put somewhere else and, you know? No, you came here to do one thing, ultimately, that's to die. The choice is how you do that. You know, are you prepared to live your life as a slave in order to avoid that thing? You know, or be scared of death. You can be scared of death and do all you can to prevent death? Live forever in the mainframe? Is that what you want to do? Live forever in the mainframe as a slave because you're so scared of death? No, folks. I think this is just a test. I think death is the main event. Because this is too short for it to be the whole thing. I think death's the main event, and this is more of a choice of how you choose to enter that. You know, whether you're going to live your life as a slave or whether your consciousness is actually worthwhile. You know, whether you're prepared to stand up for yourselves and not be too attached to this physical vessel that you temporarily inhabit. Because that's all it is, folks. It's just a temporary thing. And maybe that's what it's all about. As I've said before, maybe this is a soul test. Maybe this is a way of soul purification. Maybe this is a way of weeding out all that negativity from your soul and getting you into a point where you can face infinity without flinching. Because that's what you came here to do. But anyway, folks, I'll leave it there for now. I'm going to put a video on the end here. I think it's reasonably long. It might be 9 or 10 minutes. It might be 20 minutes. But it's a great conversation. I can't even remember the guy's name, but I'll put a link below to the channel. He's kind of a psychologist sort of a dude, and he gives you a really great conversation on how to respond to bullies and criminal behavior. And when you apply that to the current non-demic, I think it's a very relevant discussion. And so I'm going to put it on the end of the video here. But thank you for bearing with me, folks. And yeah, it was just, I got banned for a week, and so I didn't post for a week. I had a week off. And I couldn't post on my community board, so I couldn't let you know. But if you do sign up to my mailing list, go to thecrowhouse.com, sign up to my mailing list. When these things happen, I can send you out a mass email so you'll know what's going on. And look, I don't send out emails very often, folks. You're not going to be getting spam from me and newsletters every week or any of this sort of stuff. I only send out a letter when I've actually got something to say. So that's really the best way to keep track of what's going on. And things are going to get weirder and weirder. I mean, I'm fully expecting them to shut down the net for at least a while at some stage. And, it shows me as well, when you're locked out of social media, you get banned from YouTube, all they have to do is put a reset password on your email and then never send you the reset email. And suddenly you're locked out. You're locked out of the system. If I disappeared, who would know? Who would ever know that I was gone? You'd have people waiting a couple of weeks and going, gee, we haven't heard from Max for a while. I wonder what's happening. But then how would they get in touch with me to find out? It's an interesting question. But anyway, folks, I'll leave it there for now. Thank you to all the people who send me so many kind emails. I will get the rest of the t-shirts orders out to those still waiting tomorrow. I've been waiting on an order of small shirts and medium charcoal. So that should be in today or tomorrow, and I'll be able to get the rest of the orders out for those who've been waiting, and I'm really sorry for the delay. I think I've gone through and I actually found all the orders now. So in a couple of weeks, if you haven't received your t-shirt order and you had ordered one, do get back to me, but leave it a couple of weeks and we'll see what happens with this bunch that goes out tomorrow. Anyway, folks, thank you for all those people who do buy t-shirts. Thank you for the emails. Thank you for the kind words. Thank you to my Patreon supporters. Actually, the t-shirts, I'm going to have to change all the postage on the t-shirts. It's actually costing me $2 or $3 to send a t-shirt out to everybody now. So it actually cost me $2 or $3 to sell a t-shirt with the pricing I've got at the moment. I put that pricing on the website like 7 years ago, and the cost of the t-shirts and the cost of the mailing and everything's gone up since then, and I've never changed the prices. But anyway, I'll work on that one day. But it's nice that people want them anyway, and it's good to get them out to people. There was something else I wanted to say, and I can't remember what it was. You having a word, are you, Billy? I can't remember what it was. But anyway, folks, I'll leave it there for now. Thank you to everybody, and I'll speak to you again soon. Please take very good care until then. In Lakesh. Hey, Billy. What's happening, mate? You going to say hello? You're just looking.
Hello, my name is Richard Grannon, and I currently work as, let's say, a life coach who helps people to overcome childhood trauma and the trauma of emotional abuse in narcissistically abusive relationships. Formerly, I was a self-protection instructor. This is a video about being bullied, and this is a video about being coerced into doing things that you don't want to do. I myself, as an adult, don't like being pressured into doing things, ever. So when we say bullying, This covers a very, very broad spectrum of behaviours. So often we would think about school, we may think about within a household, or you can take it to criminality, like full scale. Somebody pulls out a gun and says, "Give me your money or else I'm going to shoot you." Under these circumstances, in order for this behaviour, bullying or pressuring a person, the person doing the bullying has an end goal. They have an agenda. They may state it, or they may imply it, or they might just say, "Just do as you're told and we'll tell you why later on." So they have an agenda and they apply bullying, which is pressure. At school, this is kids calling each other names, maybe a little bit of physical violence. Within a household, this could be verbal, it could be physical. And when it's criminal, it's right the way up to somebody holding a gun to you and saying, "Do as you're told, or else." So in order for bullying to work and for pressure to be applied to a person to fulfill an agenda, what you can see with all of these circumstances, there's one key element, which is threat. Threat. Now, once we've established that threat is a key element that needs to be used as leverage, the implied message of the threat is, do what I'm telling you to do with my pressure, fulfill my agenda, or else, ... or else. So why do we go along with bullies under any of these circumstances? Well, because of the threat of the or else. So if there's no or else, we won't do it. It's like if a bully tries to bully you, but they're half your size in school, you just go, "No, stop that." If somebody tries to rob you and they forget to show up with a knife or a gun, then you just say, "No, I'm not. Give us your money. I would prefer not to. Have a good day. Goodbye." Similarly, in a household, if there's no leverage, if there's no power dynamic, they can't do it. So I'm also going to assert that the greater the threat, so the more of a threat there is, the more pressure there is, the more people will be motivated to take action. In alignment with whatever the agenda is, because of the threat of the or else. So the more of this you have, the more of this you have. So if we're plotting that as a graph, it would go like that. So it would be proportionate. The more threat there is, the more obedience you have. Now, as the bully, one of your agendas, of course, would be to get obedience. But one of the things that you have to do to get obedience from an adult is, in order to get your agenda in, is you have to use shock tactics. And these shock tactics ideally should provoke an intense emotional response. So I'm going to describe something disturbing to you, but I'm going to do it in dry language. If you're easily #triggered by descriptions of real world violence, you should turn this video off now. When it is studied, there are people out there whose job, unfortunately, is to study criminal behaviour. And they study what criminals do. And they say, okay, across a broad series of cases and across a broad series of scenarios with different agendas, who would apply pressure and threat to get obedience and to force people to take action? Well, if somebody breaks into your house and they're armed and they threaten your family, you will do as they say or else. If they're terrorists and they've broken into the hotel or the airplane to fulfill a different agenda, you're going to do as they say or else. If they're robbing the place, so on and so forth. what do the statistics indicate as far as different options of response? Because you as an individual, as an adult, you can either go with what they want you to do. You can go with it, or you can say no. Here's an interesting thing. You know the scene in the movie, we've all seen these movies, where the gangsters come or the criminals come and they pull out a gun and it's a busy New York street and they say, get in the car now. I remember as a kid watching that and being like, why would you get in the car? Why would you do that? It's a gun. So what's the threat? You're going to shoot me. Okay, well, shoot me then. Because whatever's going to happen when I get in the car is surely going to be worse than being shot on a busy sidewalk in front of a bunch of witnesses. I remember thinking that as a kid. Years later, when I was working in the self-protection industry, I had the opportunity to speak to guys who did behavioral analysis when it came to crime. And I asked them, what do the statistics indicate? If you just do what the criminal wants, what happens? And they told me a few things. They said, first of all, never go to a secondary crime scene. Never. Only bad things. Well, not only. Typically, the worst things will happen to you at a secondary crime scene. The criminal wants to take you from where you are to another place to do really bad stuff to you. Really bad things. So don't go. So if that happens and somebody goes, get in the car now, and they threaten you, you're actually better off fighting and dying right there on the sidewalk. That's a brutal decision to make. But if you read and find out of these poor, you have like behavioral units like in the FBI, and they have to go through what actually happens at secondary crime locations. It's not nice. If they're trying to rob you, they come into the bank and they say, do as we say. And they get a chance to tie people up and move them to another room. Or if they get into the house and they get a chance and they can tie people up and they can get them to obey, you only have to look at the behavior of serial killers to know what happens next. When that gun is in your face, when the threat is there, every instinct inside of you is going to be saying, obey. Give them the obedience they want, because the threat is high, you're in shock, you've got a strong emotional response, and you'll be thinking, I'll just do it. I'll just do it. Probably it's an infantilizing and terrifying experience that makes us hopeful. Because in all of our normal lives, up until that point as adults, we're transactional with other adults, and we behave generally within a spectrum of being fair. Generally within a spectrum of being fair. But the statistics, sadly, don't indicate that anything good comes from obedience when you are dealing with bullies, terrorists, and criminals, and abusive, narcissistic psychopaths. If they want to take you to a secondary location, you're probably going to die there, and it's probably going to be a very, very unpleasant death. If they're asking you to put restraints on, there's a chance that they may rob you and leave, but also statistics indicate that it's pretty bad. You don't want to be restrained. If you get the chance to fight, you should fight. If you get the chance to leave, you should leave. That might mean, but you say, well, but they'll shoot you. And I'm saying, without wanting to be too graphic, it's far better than the other options, which I will not fill your head with here. But if you have an imagination, I'm sure you can picture what that might be. There's a particularly nasty case that they I don't know if they still do it, but new FBI agents, they'd make them listen to an audio that was kept of something that happened to somebody who did get in somebody else's van. It's really unpleasant. It's really, really not good. You're far better off saying no and fighting and dealing with the consequences now. You may be killed. Under those circumstances, somebody puts a gun in your face or a knife to you, you may be killed. But you are better off statistically than going to a secondary crime location and hoping for the best. You're better off statistically when they say, here's some restraints, you must fight. Because if you don't, you're going to die an unpleasant death. And also if you have people you care around with you, it's not good. It's really, really not good. So In proportion to the threat, every instinct inside of you will be, do as you're told. But what I'm telling you is, don't. Your instincts will kick in and you'll have a primary emotional response. And I think we're seeing that now. Everybody knows that this situation is really, really now not good. It's really not good. There are major changes that have already happened. Like, they're not in progress, they've already gone. The whole economic system that is gone. And people go, oh, you're worried about economy instead of lives. Economy is lives. Don't fall for the false dichotomy of choosing between lives and economy. It's lives versus lives. The only difference is the timeline. There's an argument that this timeline might be slightly longer, but not much. The kickback of people dying and suffering will be soon. It won't be in 5 years' time. It will be it's happening now. It's already begun. It's already happening. We're under pressure. Generally speaking, it is not good to do as you're told when you're pressured into doing it. Why are we under such pressure? Why is it all so shocking? Why is it all so evocative of an emotional response? If there is a real, legitimate threat, let's talk in a sober, calm way about the data. Why can't we talk about the data? Why is that not allowed? What is actually happening is people are being wound up and they're going into a strong emotional response of fawning. It's called a fawn response in psychology. And when they see other people not fawning, they get very, very upset and angry because they've drawn a line in their head between your refusal to obey and the deaths of other people, which is palpable nonsense. Nonsense at this point. If you're looking at data and using your brain and being objective rather than your emotions and consuming massive amounts of brainwashing propaganda. I'm not telling you how to live, but we seem to be hitting a point where we're splitting down the middle. My recommendation, don't be an idiot. Don't say no for no reason whatsoever. Don't cause disruption just for the sake of it. But for God's sake, don't just go along with everything. The longer we wait, the worse it is. The longer we let this continue, the worse it is. And we must be asking one question. And let's see if we can. Let's see what happens in the comments. Can we answer one question? Does the threat merit the response or not? That's the only question, ladies and gentlemen. Does the threat merit the response? A secondary question might be, is the response worse than the threat? When people are getting hysterical and saying, just do as you're told, just do as you're told. And you're like, wow, where's this coming from? These are the people who, in the scenario where the robbers come to the bank or the terrorists break into the plane and everybody's saying, put your restraints on so it's easier for us to execute you. In their heads, they're thinking, if we do as we're told, we'll live. And if you say no, you'll die, and we don't want that, and everybody else will die. That may seem real, but it is false. Let's start using our brains. Let's reopen the conversation. Conversation starter number 1. Does the data about the threat merit the action that we are being bullied into taking? Nobody's asking. We're being forced under the threat of social shaming, under the threat of name calling, under the threat of being arrested, just for asking the question. Is this necessary? And also, does it even help? Is what we're doing even helping? Because if it's not, why the fuck are we doing it? Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you can stay rational and respectful in the comments, and that you take this point in the spirit in which it was intended. I very much look forward to having a polite debate with you again very soon. Cheers.